So, you guys said you would listen to my podcast if I made one. So, I'm frickin' doing it. I realize that lots of you aren't going to be interested in history, so that's why Don't Be Stalin is going to be a working title, as I don't really know what I want to talk about. So, today I thought I would just share one of my favorite true crime stories. Probably about one of the most badass women I have ever heard of, and she was only 15 years old. So, let's get started, shall we? So, let me set the scene. It's California, summer of 1978. You know, almost the 80s, just leaving the 70s. People were a little confused. So at this time, it was still kind of like normal for people to hitchhike. I say don't do it, but some people still have faith in humanity. So, Mary Vincent, 15-year-old, promising dancer. She performed in Las Vegas, Australia, Hawaii. Definitely a very bright future for this little girl. So one day, as any hormonal 15-year-old would do, Mary decides she's finally going to run away from home. And she wanted to go to Los Angeles. Oh, and another point. Her parents were going through a divorce, so of course she wanted to leave. Mary, I get you, fucking sucks, but still probably shouldn't fucking hitchhike, am I right? So, she started walking towards California until a blue van rolled to a halt beside her. At the wheel was a former merchant marine. You know what? Lawrence Singleton. Seems like a relatively nice man. Kind of like your grandpa, but like in a really creepy and fucked up way. So, he offered to drive Mary, which she, as a 15-year-old, just accepted because she still trusts men. So, where he said he was gonna drop her off was on the interstate. And as soon as they passed the interstate, Mary started to get a little worried. So she kept asking him where they were going. He said they just had to stop at a gas station until finally sorry, this is my first time. Don't hate me. So Singleton said it was a mistake. He was just trying to find a gas station. So, a few more miles down the road, he finally stops the car and says, "Hey, I gotta use the washroom. I can't wait." And at this point, everyone should be worried for Miss Mary. So, Mary, being the smart little lady she was, started getting a little worried. And she saw that one of her shoelaces was untied. And for some reason, the thought of, if I have to run away from this man, I'm going to need to tie my shoe. So Mary opens the door of the van and ties her shoe. Sorry, she got out of the van and started tying her shoe. And then Lawrence decided to creep up from behind her and cracked her across the head with a hammer. Like, what the fuck, Lawrence? Jesus Christ. So I'm gonna save you some details, but he raped her and cut off both of her arms with a hatchet. So, both of her arms from the elbows down are now gone. Just gone. Where the fuck did they go? I don't know what Lawrence fucking did with them. And then on top of that, on top of the rape and the dismemberment, he decided to throw her down a 30-foot culvert in a canyon. So at this point, he believed he had killed Mary and that no one would ever know what he just done. He would just assume that no one would ever find her. Her bones would decay. It was like 78. They didn't really have good dental records and detectives back then. Everyone was still hyped up on coke. But Mary survived. How she fucking did that, I have no fucking clue. So she remembers saying to herself that she couldn't close her eyes and that she had to keep walking. So she walked up the 30-foot culvert and passed out due to blood loss and probably trauma and all that crazy shit. So 2 women pass her on the road and they just keep driving. They see that and they're probably like, nope, I don't want to fuck with that, which was the wrong idea because this poor 15-year-old girl is fighting for her life. And then finally, a man and a woman on their way to their honeymoon see her on the side of the road and they stop. Mary was waving her arms in the air, or what was left of her arms in the air, and she was holding them up so the blood would not fall out, and she thought that would probably get someone's attention. So she was rushed to hospital, and she frickin' survived. Isn't that insane? So she did lose both her arms, but when she got to the hospital, they were able to get her to describe the man, Lawrence, and the police were able to track him down. So now here's the crazy part. You thought the crazy part was this poor 15-year-old girl that got raped, her arms cut off, freaking survived, is a hero. So the laws were very lenient at the time, to put it nicely. So Singleton was sentenced to just 14 years in prison, which was the maximum sentence at the time, which is insane. He left her for dead, raped her, cut her arms off, and get this, he was released after serving 8 years and 4 months because he was well behaved. Shortly after his release, his psychiatric evaluation read, because he is so out of touch with his hostility, anger, he remains an elevated threat to others' safety inside and outside the prison. But of course, the system is like, oh, Lawrence, good guy, trades me coffee for a pack of gum, just good old Lawrence, Larry. But meanwhile, his fucking psychiatrist is saying he's a threat to society. So, I don't know. And then after that, freaking Lawrence decides to send letters that threatens Mary. And Mary, of course, is freaking scared after he gets released. She's like, what's stopping him from coming back and killing me or cutting off my legs? So Mary, of course, was very traumatized by this event. She had to lose her hope of becoming like a professional dancer. She suffered from PTSD and depression, nightmares. She couldn't even find a job, and she couldn't even afford to pay for her prosthetic arms. Mary said that she never smiled once in 21 years. But after that, she found a man named Tom. He didn't drive a blue van. And then she had 2 sons. And now that she's kind of come to terms. I don't even know how you could come to terms with that, but now she goes and speaks to places and tells people the dangers of hitchhiking. Like, no fucking shit. And she's an artist. There's a picture of her with her little hook hand, and like, it's not funny, but I get you. She's probably very good. So then, after Lawrence Singleton got released from jail and his psychiatrist said he was a threat to society, he decided to move to Florida after California literally wouldn't let him live in California. So the only place that would take him was Florida. Of course, Florida would. And then, after a couple years after he was released, Singleton was found covered in blood, and he killed another woman. So, after serving 8 years and then getting out, he killed another woman. And his neighbor, who saw Singleton kill this woman, described the scene, or what he heard from the scene, as bones crushing, like chicken bones breaking. So, of course, Larry was not fine. He was still... I don't know what they thought Florida was going to help. Like, the beaches, I don't know, the weather's hot. Probably makes people crazy anyway. So then they found out that the victim of his murder was 31-year-old Roxanne Hayes, who was a sex worker, and she was a mother of 3, and he stabbed her to death with a boning knife. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't sound nice. I don't want to get stabbed with anything to begin with. And if you look at a picture of Roxanne Hayes, whew, wow, she's cute. So, this time Mary had to go back to court to testify how violent he was, and that, yeah, he probably did fucking murder the girl that he was found on top of, covered in all her blood, but... So she had to tell the story about how he cut her arms off with a hatchet and left her to die. This isn't funny, but her statement from when she had to go to court was, "I was raped, I had my arms cut off, he used a hatchet, he left me to die." And as she told the stunned courtroom, she pointed her prosthetic hook at Lawrence. Lawrence just looks like a freaking weird-ass grandpa with a huge nose, so you can either Google him or take my beautifully described picture of his face. So then he was sentenced to death now that he actually murdered someone. Not when he attempted to murder Mary, but when he actually was found standing over the dead body. So Singleton was sentenced to death row, but he passed away from cancer in 2001 before he was able to die from lethal injection. Which, I mean, good riddance, good on Mary, but like, damn. Isn't that an insane story? Like, Jesus Christ. When I was 15, what was I doing when I was 15? I was like in fucking grade 10. I don't know, I drew my eyebrows like way too close together and like way too dark and wore fucking ponchos. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, I probably would have took a ride from good old Lawrence Singleton blue van if I had to. Oh God. I just dropped my phone. Wow. So, yeah, that's the story I have for you, so maybe I'll talk longer next time. I don't know. We'll see. I probably won't even have time. Okay. Well, bye.